The bases dropped a little bit later than usual. Soccer Down Here is live on an overreaction Thursday. The reason for the delayed start is a late night in New York, or for me, in the air, coming back from New York to Atlanta after last night's 4-1 loss at Yankee Stadium. I'm Jason Longshore. John Nelson will be joining in just a bit, the later time. We've got other interviews. John has all of the football coverage, getting ready for a busy weekend in the high school world and also on the OSG Sports app on the college football world. So John will be joining in the next segment. But let's get caught up on, if you were not listening to the call on 92.9 The Game, this is what the match sounded like. It started out with Atlanta having some opportunities. It started out with a lineup that appeared to have some nice advantages for Atlanta attacking the left side, as NYC had to turn to Sebastian Ibeagha to play right back in a line of four, replacing Anton Tinnerholm, who was out with a concussion. Tito Villalba starting on that side. Atlanta tried to play through Villalba early. They couldn't get anything going, and NYC took advantage of space in behind, and this happened early on.
Back the other way, New York City, coming straight down the middle to Jory Shradi. Up ahead now to Morales at the top of the 18, makes one man miss. Inside the arc, turn, shoots and scores. Golazo for Alexandru Mitrita, and it's 1-0 to New York City.
Alexandru Mitrita is one of the most talented players in the league, and he opened the scoring in the 14th minute. Ismail Tajori Shradi gets the assist. 9 minutes later, it's Mitrita again.
Now, here's a combination as they come down the left wing again, controlling on the edge of the 18. A turn and a shot off the post and in. Another goal, New York City. And it's Mitrita again to make it 2-0.
Well, Mitrita not done. 11 minutes later, this is what happened.
Villalba takes a step back and will bend it all the way back to Robinson, and it takes an awkward bounce off him. Here comes Tajori Shradi down the middle. Robinson in front along with LGP. Tajori Shradi, shot, save goes in, rebound Mitrita, hat trick. And it's falling apart for Atlanta United at Yankee Stadium.
Wondered what the response would be in the second half, and it was better. NYC was also going through the motions a little bit, as you would expect with a 3-goal lead. Pity Martinez had a couple of good through balls, splitting defenders for Brandon Vasquez. Eventually, Atlanta gets a breakthrough when this happened.
A good turn by Remedi in the midfield. He comes up to the halfway line and sends it ahead now to Pitti down the right wing. Pitti about 40 yards from goal. Down into the box, Brandon Vasquez. Vasquez tripped up in the box. Penalty! Oh, well, Pity Martinez, que loco, que esta. A beautiful ball, and Vasquez draws the penalty to give Atlanta United a chance to get back in this game. Chapman blows his whistle. Pitti is to the right of the ball. Chapman again resetting players. There's the whistle. Pitti up to the ball, strikes it, and scores! El Pity Martinez, que loco, que esta. And Atlanta United's back in it, trailing 3-1.
Yeah, it felt like Atlanta was primed for a breakthrough early in the second half, and you wondered if maybe that goal would give them a lift. It did for a little while. It wasn't enough, and late as Atlanta got tired and exposed going for a second goal, Eber comes back into the team for NYC and gets the fourth of the night.
LGP poked at it, but it rolls back to Monterrito. Will come up to the halfway line, dribbling around Pereira. Then it's cut down the middle of the park by Callens. Hebert poaching and has it on a breakaway. 1v1 on Brad. Shot score. Awkward bounce. Game over. And Hebert's got his 15th goal of the year.
So many one-on-ones. So many kind of odd man rushes, if you want to go hockey style on it, where NYC had minimum of 3v3 against Atlanta's three center backs. Often 3v2 or 4v3 or 2v2 or 1v1. And this has been the conversation since, honestly, before the Gold Cup break where the common line was Atlanta was too defensive. Then you started to stretch out and push forward more. You go to the 3-5-2. It works. It has a good effect. You get results out of it. But the concern was always a game like this one, where if you're not dominating in possession, if you're not dominating the game and forcing the other team back, can the 3-5-2 be effective? Not in a game like this. Not when NYC plays very, very high and plays a front line like Castellanos, Mitrita, Tajori Shradi with Maxi Morales floating in behind. Look, behind that, Ibeagha wasn't really going forward much from a right back position in their 4-3-3. Matarrita was, and it was, kind of by design. Ibeagha is a traditional center back. He's going to step inside, make it a line of three. Tony Rocha, Alexander Ring, they're going to be comfortable sitting in behind, letting that front four do their thing. Problem is, they had a lot more to do than they should have because Atlanta couldn't control the game. And the way Atlanta is built, whether you're in a 3-5-2, a 4-3-3, whether it's Merrim and Gressel as the wingbacks or Villalba and Escobar or whatever other permutation you can come up with, if you're not controlling the match, these opportunities will happen. And let's dig into a couple things that jump out at you. When you start to look at this and you're looking at the numbers underneath and you're like, what happened? What was the issue here? Beyond those 3v3s, those 2v2s, those one-on-one opportunities that NYC seemed to win consistently. New York City created 9 chances. Atlanta created 6. That doesn't look like a 4-1 kind of game. It looks a little more even. Pity Martinez created 5. For NYC, it was Matarrita who created 3, getting forward. It's Maxi Morales who is having an unbelievable year. If you haven't been following Maxi Morales very closely, he is over 20 assists now on the season. Only the 3rd player in Major League Soccer history to do that. Those guys create 3 chances each. That's as many as Atlanta creates on the whole. Tajori Shradi with 1, Castellanos with 1, Eber with 1 as a sub. All right, so they weren't really creating a ton. Let's look at the Atlanta side. It's 5 key passes for Gonzalo Martinez. It's 1 for Franco Escobar. Shots. So Atlanta had 10 shots on target, 4. 3 saves from Sean Johnson. Vasquez with 3 shots, 1 on target. LGP with a shot. Heinman with a shot, both on target. Villalba Pereira with a shot, not on target. Passing percentages declined, which is pretty traditional at Yankee Stadium, to be honest. Even Darlington Nagbe's at 85%. That's not where he's normally going to be. Lots of other numbers for me that jump out. And the one that I wanted to look for after the game because of how it felt, because it was something that I had zeroed in on when we started to hear what these lineups could look like. When you start looking at, okay, Anton Chinderholm's not available, what can NYC do in his place? Do they play Eric Miller there? He's coming off a really poor day in Dallas, and he had a full body cramp at the end of that on Sunday. So is he going to be ready to go on Wednesday? It's risky. You don't have another true right back. When Ibeagha's name comes up on the team sheet, it's like, oh, okay. You've got a converted center back playing on the right side, a reserve center back who's had some moments, but hasn't been a player who's jumped out at you. Then you see the team sheet for Atlanta, and it's like, oh, Tito Villalba. Wait a minute. You're going to have Villalba Ibeagha a lot. And if Atlanta wins that battle, I think it's a very, very different game. So, how did that battle go? Well, you look at the dribbles, and you look at the opportunities. Tito Villalba had 1 successful dribble on the night. That's not what you're looking for here. But how many chances did he have? Let's zero in on that. 7. He was 1 of 7, and almost all of those were against Ibeagha. It's when that side of the field gets locked down, when you're getting overwhelmed in transition, when you're not striking fear into the opposition to keep Matarrita from pushing forward, for example, when you're not dominating the middle of the park, you're going to struggle because the matchup that should be giving you your greatest opportunities, you're losing it. 1 of 7 is not going to make it happen because we all know Tito Villalba is not playing left wing back for his defense. He's playing it to create. It's not there. Justin Merrim, it's honestly not like Merrim had a ton of success going against Ibeagha either. 4 dribbles for Merrim, 0 successful. Dribbling has been something that we've seen far more of a tool for Atlanta this year. They've used it a lot more than they did in previous years because you have Merrim, Villalba, Pereira, 3 very confident players on the dribble. Pity Martinez, no slouch himself. Darlington Nagbe, we know what he can do, and he was 3 of 4 in his opportunities. You play to the strengths of what you have. So you're creating 1v1s, even more, I think, exaggerated than you did in the Tata Martino days. You want 1v1 situations. You want to win your 1v1 battles. When Frank de Boer talks about duels, or duels, as he says, which I love, it's not just a 50-50 ball. It's not just an aerial duel. These are duels as well. And generally, Atlanta's been very good in these. Very, very good. They've been among the best, if not the best, in Major League Soccer across the board in all kinds of duels. Last night, that was a big issue because you faced a very good opponent on a difficult field, no question about it. Did it affect the result? No. Did they lose because of Yankee Stadium? No, they didn't. Did it make it more difficult? Yeah, because when you look at Atlanta, who generally wins all of their duels, 55%, I think was the number coming into the match. First half, 49, second half, 45%. It's going to hurt you. It's going to hurt you. It was, in a very broad way, to kind of sum up last night from my vantage point. You had opportunities you couldn't take advantage of with the Villalba-Ibeagha matchup. Ibeagha stayed home, but he won every battle he had, so he did his job. You weren't able to do really much on the other side because I think Matarrita got the better of Escobar, and your center back struggled. I thought Pogba and LGP both at different points really, really struggled in this match. Pogba, I think, kind of struggled to deal with the intensity of the match at times. He was a little lackadaisical in possession and a little slack on picking runners up because NYC puts you under pressure. And I'm never as comfortable with LGP on the right side of the back line as I am on the left. And I went back through the numbers to kind of look at it just from average player ratings on who scored, for example, which again is not scientific. It's not a poll, but it does take it into effect statistics in the way a person plays. His numbers on the right side, which he's done 4 times in this run playing in the 3-5-2, are not generally where they're at on the other side. The one number that's an outlier, his best performance playing on the right side of the back line, was in Portland, and I think one reason his rating was so high there is he got a goal. But the 4 times that he's played on the right side, the 4 times we've seen that permutation, Pogba, Robinson, LGP, you'd won 3 coming into this one. You'd won 3 times. You won with that group at Portland, you won with that group in Orlando, and you won with that group in the Open Cup final, although LGP was sent off in that match with 2 yellows. So you're 3-1 with that group. The group that's been the most successful is what I think is the best starting 3. Gonzalez-Perez on the left, Robinson in the middle, Escobar on the right. They're 5-1. Something that jumps out at you, though, when you look at this, and we know about the suspensions, we know about the yellow card accumulations. Since the Houston match, where you went to the 3-5-2, you have only seen the same back 3 times in a row. The one that's played the most is the Gonzalez-Perez, Robinson-Escobar one. But the only time you haven't seen anybody more than 3 games in a row play together. And it was the Pogba-Robinson-LGP one in that, week and a half with Portland, Orlando on the road, then the Open Cup final. You've had to make changes so many other times. No other group has played together more than twice in a row. I think that has an effect. I think it does. I think you saw it last night in a match where, look, NYC was the better team. And Bobby Warshaw had a really good piece about New York City being the best team in the East. And they have grabbed that mantle and taken it. They are, right now, the second best team in Major League Soccer. They showed it last night. They're not unbeatable, which I don't think LAFC is unbeatable either. But the things that NYC does well, that front 4, and you can mix and match with it too. I mean, you can move Castellanos over to the side. You can play Eber coming off the side. You haven't had Eber lately. Now you're getting him back into the mix. Gary Mackay-Steven can be dangerous when he plays out wide. Maxi Morales can go out wide. Matriza can drop into the 10. It's very fluid. It's very talented. And they're all very good at winning their 1v1s. You can't give them space. But they can also press. They can also step up and cause errors and cause mistakes. That's another element that makes them very good. And they're so confident with Alexander Callens, Maxime Chanot, Alexander Ring, when Keaton Parks is healthy, him in the mix as well. That 4 in the middle of the park, 2 midfielders, 2 center backs. They're so confident in that 4 that this front 3 and sometimes 4 play very, very high because they trust what's behind them. So they take chances. It's difficult to deal with if you're an opponent. You can't come in hesitant, and I thought Atlanta came in hesitant. I thought Atlanta looked, one, like they were looking for Joseph Martinez in the early going. They didn't have that focal point. It looked different. 2, maybe it's the size of the pitch. Maybe it's some players who haven't played on it before. You look at the starting lineup from last night. Florentin Pogba hadn't played there before. Brandon Vasquez, I don't think had seen the field at Yankee Stadium, although he had been there before. Emerson Hyndman hadn't been there. Pity Martinez hadn't been there. You know, does that explain all of it? No, but as a collective, you're playing on a smaller pitch. Does it make you just a little tighter? It can. And I thought it showed last night. And you can't play NYC that way. You're gonna get run out of the building when you play that way against NYC. You have to, just like you did against San Jose, you have to be decisive, you have to be quick, you have to be brave, you have to make decisions fast. Warshaw's 2 things about concerns for NYC is what I want to finish this segment with before we get John on the line. His 2 concerns for New York City at this stage. They've shown vulnerability trying to pass out of the back. And you go back to Alexander Ring's giveaway in Dallas. Any team that's going to build out of the back, yes, it's an issue. If a good team presses them, you can cause a mistake. I think that's consistent with most. I don't worry about it a whole lot with NYC. It's the trade-off you make to be able to play the way you want. This is the one that jumps out to me because it jumped out to me last night. Warshaw said their games also tend to get extremely open. They aren't great at making the field compact when they need it. As a result, they may struggle to shut down a game. I agree, because they didn't do it against Dallas. They didn't do it against Atlanta. Atlanta got 1 back. They couldn't find more. Didn't create enough chances to find more. But they were there. The game was open, and it felt like if Atlanta had found a second, I don't know how it would have finished. That's the way the game felt being in the building. And for a team that's as good as NYC, that's a little strange. You don't have as much security that, all right, when the time comes and they've got a 3-1 lead at home in a postseason match, can they drop into a 5-4-1? Can they sit back and defend? And just defend. And just be safe. Can they close the game out that way? There's still question marks on that. And when you play the way they do and there's so much openness and there's so much space, teams are going to have opportunities to create chances. They have to take them, and they have to be willing to take some risks to do it. But they are there. I think LAFC has that issue, too, at times. So the best two teams in the league don't feel as dominant in terms of game to game, in terms of in the 90 minutes, as you might think they are. And I think that's going to make for a very interesting postseason. But last night, NYC was by far the better team. Demolishes Atlanta 4-1. And Atlanta has to pick themselves up and head to Montreal now, because Philadelphia got a win last night. We'll talk about that as we go. Philadelphia came from behind somewhat controversially with some of the VAR decisions out in San Jose, and the Union get the win, so they move into the 2 spot right now. We'll catch up on all of that. We'll get going on the Overreaction Thursday topics as well. Hang out with us. We're going to take a quick break. Be right back after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, September 26th edition. Found somebody.
Hi.
What's up?
How you feeling?
I'm tired.
That's what I figured. Late night flight. You probably got in about 2, which meant you probably got back to the hacienda about 3.
No, we got out pretty quick. Got home about 2 and just wired, couldn't sleep. A certain young puppo wanted to go for a late stroll. So
I'll bet.
Yeah, so it took a while. And then also the certain young puppo did not want to sleep in. So, that's kind of double whammy of puppiness, but it's all good. So we're I'm on the second Red Bull of the day.
So we're going to talk about the Canadian Championship?
Yeah, we can talk about that. Toronto loses in penalties. So this squad, Toronto FC, they have lost a Major League Soccer Cup, an MLS Cup, on penalties. They have lost a CONCACAF Champions League on penalties.
Yep.
And now they have lost a Canadian Championship on penalties.
Hat trick.
Missed 3 of 4 last night.
Oh, yeah. I saw that, and I was like, I had to actually look at that notation twice, that they had missed 3 of 4 penalties. And that just absolutely blows me away. But now we know one more team that is heading to the CONCACAF Champions League. And now we have a coach in Wilmer Cabrera who has gone to CONCACAF Champions League in different countries now.
That might be Wilmer Cabrera calling right now. He's pretty happy. He's won back-to-back cups in different countries with the Houston Dynamo last year and Montreal this year. So we actually know 2. I believe we know 2. I'm sorry. We know 2. LAFC won the Supporters Shield last night. They are in as the Western Conference champions. Montreal in as the Canadian champions. We already knew Atlanta as the Open Cup champions. NYC should have the Eastern Conference. They don't have it locked up just yet. They should. They would be the next one. MLS Cup champ would be the final berth out of Major League Soccer. And if it is Atlanta, NYC, or LA, and I guess still mathematically if it's Montreal at this point, if any of them double up, then it's the next best regular season record. And right now, that's Minnesota United.
Yep.
Minnesota with a huge win last night over Sporting Kansas City. 2-1. If you haven't heard the local Minnesota TV call, go check it out. It was a great one. Botan Barat for Kansas City, 7th minute go-ahead goal for them. Minnesota has to fight back. Ozzy Alonso gets one in the 70th, and Hassani Dotson, the rookie, who will be in the Rookie of the Year conversation for sure. I don't think he is definitely the guy just yet, but he's going to be in the mix. He gets a goal. It's deflected, but it beats Tim Melia. It's a great moment for Minnesota. They clinch a playoff spot. And right now, if LA, more than likely NYC, or Atlanta win MLS Cup, Minnesota's the next one who's going to CONCACAF.
Yeah, the deflection, I think it was just barely off of Barat, and the irony did not escape.
It took a pretty good hit off of him. I mean, it didn't – I don't think Melia was getting it anyway.
Yeah,
is what I don't want to take away from Dotson's shot, but it definitely took a pretty decent deflection.
Yeah, so where you have Barat have the goal, then it goes off of him for the game winner, and yes, your homework for today is to find the Minnesota call, and
it's on YouTube. It's not hard. You'll do it in like 2 seconds.
So that's your homework. So it's an easy homework assignment.
That's not homework. That's just like normal scrolling.
So then normal scrolling, find it, listen to it. It's fun. But what does this say about Orlando letting Adrian Heath go?
You'd have to ask Orlando folks about that. I don't think they're very happy about it. They shouldn't be, because I think they pulled the trigger too early on Heath. I mean, Adrian Heath should be in the Coach of the Year conversation. I think that's valid. Is he a guy who can win MLS Cup for you? I think that's still a question. I don't know if I'd go there just yet, but I think Minnesota, outside of LAFC, could be the most complete team in the West. And you have to give Adrian Heath a lot of credit for it. You have to give his front office credit for it, too, because when you go out and get Ike Opara, you go out and get Osvaldo Alonso, you fix the problem that team's had from day one, which is defensively. So Orlando didn't give Adrian Heath a full 2 years. He didn't make it all the way through year 2. And then it got worse. And then it got worse again. Minnesota committed to it. And I think the challenge was on the table from day one this year. And Heath said it himself. You want to stay? You want to keep your job? Make the playoffs. Flat out. If they didn't make the playoffs, he said there were no excuses. And then, yeah, his role is definitely going to be in question. Well, he answered it. He did the job, and they're in a really good spot. I think they can give anybody a run for their money out west. The LA Galaxy went out to Utah and got a big win, a 2-1 win at RSL. They move into third place in the West. You know, it always helps when you're able to go add a 2018 World Cup player for a team like Argentina in the summer window and somehow make it all fit with roster rules. But, you know.
Yes.
Christian Pavón has been excellent as he started to get, you know, kind of his feet underneath him in Major League Soccer. He gets a goal. Zlatan gets a goal. And then you win. You get a late goal for RSL in the 89th. Made it a little interesting, but the Galaxy clinch their playoff spot. They move into third in the West. They're one of those teams I still hold firm to the point that I think Guillermo Barros Escaloto can have a better team, a team that plays better soccer when Zlatan's not there. I think at times they become very Zlatan dependent, which is understandable because he is delivering in a massive way. And he's a massive presence. And, yes, he flaps his arms and gives you looks of disdain if things don't go well, even if he's the one who made the mistake. Does that all factor into what the LA Galaxy are right now? Yeah, it does. But when Zlatan can pull out moments of magic in a big game, and he's been there and he's done that before in his career, can he do it in the MLS playoffs? We're going to find out. And we're going to see what Zlatan can do because this team has not been good in recent years. They're in the playoffs again. And do you think LAFC wants to see him? No. I don't think anybody wants to deal with Zlatan in the postseason. So the Galaxy get their big win that was a little bit of a surprise. LAFC takes care of business against Houston. They had to sweat it a little bit. It wasn't pretty. Vela with a penalty in the 23rd. Tyler Miller own goal in the 28th. Equalized it. And then it took the 70th minute, Diego Rossi with the breakthrough, Edward Atuesta with a great one in the 82nd. LAFC wins the Supporters' Shield. It's their first piece of hardware. They're the team to beat. Yeah. I think they have established themselves along there in the West and NYC in the East. Those are the two teams to beat. Those are the teams with the bullseye on their back going into the postseason. Portland, New England was pretty bonkers.
Yep.
I think San Jose, Philadelphia passed it on the bonker scale, but just barely. Jeremy Abobasi finally figured out where the back of the net was for Portland because nobody in green could do that for quite a while. But Abobasi
215 minutes?
I think it was 300, if I'm not mistaken. Abobasi gets 2. They're up 2-0 in the 81st minute. And then they draw. Gustavo Bo with the 87th minute goal, and then Carlos Heel, 97th minute penalty. It was a difficult referee decision that goes to VAR. The penalty is given. Wilfred Zahibo was pulled down in the box, and it's a 2-2 gut punch for the Timbers. And, oh yeah, by the way, there are reports out of Portland that Diego Valeri said his goodbyes from the Capo stand last night in front of the Timbers Army. Yeah. And how much of a distraction is that at this stage for the Timbers? I think it has to be at least something.
Yeah. And considering what he means to the fabric of that team, to have something like that come out in social media, that's strong. That's strong stuff, and that has to affect that locker room.
I mean, the contract stuff is what's affecting the locker room because I don't know if he's coming back, and that's been ongoing for a little while. So some of Portland's issues before that part became public, maybe you have a little bit better of an understanding now. But yeah, it's a tricky situation for the Timbers. San Jose and Philadelphia was the late game last night.
Bonkers.
11 o'clock kick in the East. Jackson Ewell gets the goal for San Jose in the 35th. Chris Wondolowski takes his shirt off, waves it around like a helicopter, singing Petey Pablo songs probably.
He's got to take the hat off first, though.
I don't think he really cared. You're not thinking normally when your team scores a goal and you're in the Ultras section for the first time. You're not really thinking. You're just doing things, and Wando was nuts, it was great to watch. It was fun. They had a goal early in the second half, called back, I think correctly, for offside, although it's close. You look at the replay, it looks like he is a step off Danny Houston. So then Philadelphia fights back. Well, no, then Philadelphia scores twice. Alejandro Bedoya scores in the 70th, and Kasper Shabilko scores in the 76th. Then, and this is the big then, Aurelian Collin knocks over Andres Rios inside the 18. It was called a penalty. It went to review. It went to an on-field review, and it was taken back at that stage.
Yep.
You're making lots of noises, and I don't quite know how you feel about this.
I know, really. I was watching this, and when Collin takes down Rios, you're sitting there going, yeah, gotta be. Great call. You had it right. There you go. Collin immediately gets up, and he's waving it off, going, no. Or he's saying, no, it wasn't as serious as you thought. And then to have it taken back after review, I was stunned when that happened. Absolutely stunned. I could not believe, and that's when it went way over on the bonkers scale for me. If it wasn't bonkers enough, that completely blew the bonkers scale.
Well, do you think it was correct? What do you think about it?
I think that the initial call was correct. I don't think the reversal was correct. I think he had it right the first time.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at here too. I saw it on. No, actually, I saw this on ESPN Plus because we had landed at this point. So, sitting on the plane, watching this game conclude, knowing that Philly's come back and made it 2-1, and you see this happen, it's like, oh, penalty, okay. You're going to get a point here. This is a good thing. All right. Nothing against our friends in Philadelphia, but, you don't want them to get full 3 points here when you're trying to get second in the East.
Right.
Then you see the replays, and you're like, okay, it looks like a penalty. Then you see that it's being talked about for a long time, and you're like, well, wait a minute. And then you go to the on-field review, and you're like, I don't think he's going to the on-field review just to take a second look. And the penalty's wiped off. Standing on the tarmac, watching this on my phone, saying things that I'm not going to repeat right now. I was pretty shocked. And Baldomero Toledo was the referee. Robert Jonas was the pool reporter in San Jose. And I am going to try to read Baldomero Toledo's handwriting. It's a little small. Let me make sure I got the right one, because he was asked about both. Okay, the second question was the first one, which I think he got right. I think the offside goal, I think it was correct. So the question from Robert Jonas was about the penalty at the end. What did you see when you awarded the penalty to Rios that did not appear on the replay? And he said, I believed I saw Collin make strong contact with Rios' lower body. Upon review, the replay showed the contact was incidental and did not warrant the awarding of a foul. I
really? That disagree. Was incidental?
I disagree. That's incidental. I don't know. I don't think that's incidental. I really don't. And I think once you call it, and we've talked about this so many times with these situations, once you call it and you saw it clearly, you're using the replay to re-referee it.
Yeah.
That's not what VAR is supposed to be doing. Was it a clear and obvious error that it was a penalty called? I don't think it was.
Think so. No.
When you look at it, do you see something that is clearly and obviously wrong about your call? I don't think so. It's a judgment call. And at that point, you're just making a judgment over, well, was it strong contact? Was it not so strong contact? Was it incidental contact? That's re-refereeing. That's a problem. That's not what this is supposed to be doing. And we've talked about it all season long with VAR and referees, and this is a big potential situation because you don't know what would have happened on the penalty, but you assume that you're going to make it because more often than not penalties are made. That takes Philadelphia to a very different spot in the standings. It changes the Eastern Conference race. It changes the situation for our friends out in San Jose.
Yes.
It's a big decision. And he did something that generally we've been told they're not supposed to do.
Yep.
If San Jose had gotten that penalty and converted it, they would be in the final playoff spot right now.
Correct.
They are not at the moment, and they are on the outside of the playoffs looking in. If San Jose had gotten that penalty and converted it, Atlanta would be in second place. Philadelphia would be in third, going into the final two matches. It's a huge win for Philadelphia. It's a great comeback for them.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not a fan of Baldomero Toledo re-refereeing such a critical moment because you create a precedent, and this is what I'm always looking at in these types of situations. Are we going to re-referee everything now? Are we going to re-referee every call? Not offside. Not was it in the box or not. Not the situation was did he make contact or not. Not something more clear-cut. Judging the amount of contact that was made.
Yeah.
That is the definition of a judgment call. This is worse to me than handball situations or anything else. This, in my opinion, is one of the most egregious overreaches from VAR that we've seen in Major League Soccer this season. Just because you're judging the amount of contact on a play. Are you going to do that on every single one? If you are, then okay, fine. We'll all get ready for 10 minutes of stoppage time at the end of each half because you're going to do that from now on. But that's not what was sold. That's not how this was set up to be. And why is it becoming that situation right there in that moment? If you're San Jose and you look at the last two games and you look at the red card to Espinoza, yes, San Jose fans have been upset with it. I think it's correct. Don't love the first yellow. But the way that game was being called at that moment, that yellow did fit the way it was being called. I didn't like the way it was being called at that moment with all the yellows flying around. All right. That send-off happened. Wondolowski sent off from the bench. And according to what Chris Wondolowski tweeted that he said, he should have been sent off. You can't call a referee a blanking cheat. You can't call any referee anything around the words of cheat. You can't question their integrity. You're going to get sent off every time. I do have a question about why there was such an intent focus on the San Jose bench area.
Yep.
And if that was heard, and I mean, Wando says he said it. Wando tweeted that. So he said it. You say that, and a referee hears it, you're going to get sent off, flat out. It gives you a very different feel of that send-off, but okay, were you listening for it?
But why the preoccupation?
Well,
why was the
this is the thing about it, though, John. Like, if it was said loud enough to be heard, doesn't matter if you're preoccupied with it or not. You're getting sent off.
No,
flat out.
That's complete. Yeah,
flat out. But he says he said it, so it's a little bit harder to go down that road. The Almeida send-off makes no sense to me at all. That's
correct.
The one that I have nothing to do with because it's on a save, unless he said something about the referee being a cheat too, and if he did, then, well, yeah, he's going to get sent off. He was fined for not leaving the field in a quick manner, which is a little foolish, but whatever. Yeah. So San Jose fans are not happy about the way that game went. Not happy about the situation that led to the Wondolowski send-off. I mean, we've seen the video. I can't remember who it is from Atlanta in the corner, but yeah, there's roughhousing. The game was rough. You had lots of things like that, those little extra elbows, extra forearms, those types of things. Penso was kind of all over the place in the way he was calling it. It wasn't called there. Not something in my mind to the level that Wondolowski should have said what he said. He gets popped for it. Okay. Then you go back home, and then you have a goal taken away. I think rightly, but narrowly. And then you have a goal taken away at the end that I think was incorrect because of the way it was taken away. You're going to be pretty upset if you're a San Jose Earthquakes fan right now. And you're going to feel like you're being targeted. It's a shame.
For me, it's where VAR is being used as a crutch instead of a clarifier. And I thought that was what was not supposed to be what that was all about. You don't re-referee.
I disagree. It's not being a crutch because Toledo didn't want to go look at it until he was told by the VAR. It's different. I don't want to. I'm not trying to be difficult here, but the word crutch would be, in my mind, if it was the opposite. If he didn't call it on the field and then wants to go look at it to make a call. This is even worse because in my mind, he made the call.
Yeah.
And you're not using it as a crutch. You're being told by the video assistant referee, you got this wrong. It's clearly and obviously wrong. My question would be, well, what's wrong? What's wrong with it? What did I miss?
Yes.
And if it is he didn't touch him, he dove, he something to those lines, okay. Even exaggerated, I have a little bit of an issue with. But to say, well, the contact's not as much as you thought it was, or we think you thought it was, because that's what the VAR would be telling Toledo. And then he goes,
and then you go back and see it, and then you're second guessing yourself, and then you pull it back.
That's not a crutch, though. It's a very different situation, and I think it's the worst situation with VAR. Using the replay as a crutch, I don't like it, but I at least logically can understand it in a difficult call. This is worse because you made the call in a big moment. You had the guts to make the call in a big moment.
And it was the extreme in the instance. It wasn't one where, okay, it was just a foul, and I'm taking the location out of it.
Mm-hmm. It's a big call.
It's a big call, and normally you can upgrade into a more serious idea with VAR. Here, you downshift into a less serious thought after being told you were wrong, and it was a clear and obvious error, which I don't think it was. And it's just, you're sitting there with your hands in the air going, what in the wide world of sports am I watching with this?
It's very, and I know we talk about referees a lot, and I try really hard to give you the full picture of how difficult it is to do that. And I don't just want to complain about referees to complain about referees and say they're bad. None of them are trying to be bad. None of them want to be the story. I really, truly believe that. None of them are like, yes, I want to be the headlines here. It's not their job. The way this played out, though, is the one that's the most troubling for me, because if you get in the situation where you make the call, but then you're using video to determine how much contact or how severe the contact was or how strong the contact was, that's not what you used to be using it for. If you're using the video to see if there was contact, if there was an arm extended, if there was something that you couldn't see, all right. I want to get the calls right. I can roll with that. Even if I don't love the delays, I can roll with that. That makes sense. That's logical to me. Re-refereeing games in the situation I have a problem with. And I'll have to go back and look as to who the VAR was. Because for me, that's the bigger issue here. It feels like an overreach by the video assistant referee. Now, we don't know the conversation. We don't know, and they're not supposed to, but you know these things happen. We don't know if Toledo asked for help. I don't think he would. He's not a ref. I mean, he's a very experienced referee. This is not somebody who is new to this. The VAR, I believe, is someone who is fairly new to this.
Malik Badawi.
Yes. Not a name I recognize, so I go to take a look and see where their experience is. He's been a center this season in USL Championship, NWSL. Was a fourth official for an MLS match back in July 20th, Colorado and New York City. Some U.S. Open Cup action. Had the Colorado-New Mexico United Open Cup match, which was craziness. All right. So dealt with some things there, but not as a center in MLS. And not a name that I've seen commonly on VAR situations.
Yeah.
And it's just a little surprising that a referee like Toledo would be talked into this by a VAR who has no MLS experience as a center. It doesn't seem to fit. It doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. These are unofficial, but this is a great source, MLS Ref Stats on Twitter. Believe it was Baldomero Toledo's 287th game in Major League Soccer. One of the most experienced referees in the league. Malik Badawi, his 11th match as a VAR. That's a big button to push in that moment if you're Malik Badawi as the VAR to say, you need to go take a look at this. You missed it.
Yeah.
And for Toledo to agree with it, I'm shocked it happened when you look at that pairing. I'm really surprised that this is the way it played out. But San Jose ends up losing. They don't have a chance to get a penalty to come back and pull a draw. And you've got a very different table because of it. And before we go to break, Eastern Conference, New York City, 61 points. Philadelphia, 55. Philly's got to win out. New York City's got to lose both. They do play each other. NYC will be missing some pieces this weekend when they go to Gillette Stadium, so it's not completely out of the realm of possibility. If Philadelphia wins out and New York City doesn't win again, Philadelphia wins East. Atlanta's third, 54 points. DC 48, Red Bulls 47, Toronto 46, New England 42. 4 points clear of Chicago, 5 points clear of Montreal, 6 points clear of Orlando, and Columbus is eliminated on 35 points. Out west, LAFC 68 points. They've won the Supporters' Shield. Minnesota second, 52. LA Galaxy third, 51. Seattle didn't play last night. They're on 50. Get a little bit of a gap now. RSL fifth, 47 points. Portland, 6th, 45 points. One more win than Dallas, also on 45 points. San Jose, 8th on 44 points. 1 point back. They're out of the playoffs right now. They have the same number of wins as Portland, and that could come into play when you get into tie breaks. Colorado, still alive, 39 points. They're 6 points back. They've got to win out and get a ton of help. It's not happening. Sorry, Colorado. But that's where you're at. That's the table as we go into the next to final weekend of the season. We'll look ahead to that. We'll get into the Overreaction Thursday timeline right after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, September 26th. Let's get one over-under on par reaction before the first hour concludes.
Joe Laszlo says that starting Villalba and Pogba was a failed experiment. Villalba cemented his place on the team as a super sub at best. Pogba remains a defensive liability for emergency use only. Also, Yankee Stadium is a stain on MLS. #overreaction Thursday.
That's definitely in the over category a little bit. Villalba didn't work. He couldn't beat Ibeagha, and that was the opportunity that he had. You had to look at that matchup. I did. I'll put my hand up. I thought Tito Villalba would have a great day against Sebastian Ibeagha. He did not. So that part, failed experiment. Anybody would have taken that matchup. Anybody would have. And you knew you didn't have Anton Tinnerholm. NYC, he was out with a concussion, so you knew you were going to have an opportunity. I get it. It makes sense. It just didn't pay off. Pogba, I wouldn't say he's a defensive liability. I would say that his form has dipped in his last couple appearances. He had a run when they played 3 matches in a row with Pogba, Robinson, Leandro Gonzalez-Perez. Florentine Pogba was very, very good. He was very good in the Campeones Cup as well. That was 4 out of 5 games in a row that Pogba played. Since then, didn't look good against Columbus, looked worse at Yankee Stadium. So I think it's more of a current form has dipped. I don't think he was a defensive liability in those other matches. He did look a little lost at times last night. So that's my issue here is this a revert? Is this going back to who he is, or is he in a bit of a slump? Either way, you got to figure it out quick, because you're possibly going to have to turn to him again or turn to someone. Yep. And does Michael Parkhurst or Jeff Larinowitz become that person that you turn to instead? Jeff started the match in Philadelphia when you didn't have Escobar, and that one didn't go great either. So it's not an easy solution when you're missing LGP or Escobar, and with their yellow card affinity, it's going to happen from time to time. Let's take a break, come back, reset. Hour number 2, all the reactions from you guys on Twitter. Join the conversation at Soccer Down here. We'll be right back after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Hour number 2. A late lunch with an overreaction Thursday here at SDH. Jason and John with you. The Twos played really well last night. John, give us an update.
They got full points against Indy 11, and it was starting off with a goal off of a corner. George Campbell went airborne, beat Evan Newton. Newton got a piece of it, but it went in. And then Brendan Moore spilled a shot that was went up kind of underneath him a little bit, and then Patty Barrett ended up getting the easy slam dunk there to tie it at 1. But then it was Andrew Carlton, who's been hot of late, scoring again and basically went 5-hole through Patty Barrett at the top of the box and was all alone, put it past Evan Newton, and it was 2-1, and it was full points there as Atlanta United and the Twos get their way through their positions in the conference standings, continuing their climb in the late season. Longest undefeated string of the season to date at 4, 3 wins and a draw.
Yeah, even in some of the other results over the last, I'd almost go back 8 weeks, they've played much, much better. The development has been really good this season, playing really good soccer at the moment. You're getting good performances from young players like George Campbell, and Andrew Carlton's been great here lately. He has been everything you want him to be, and I think he's playing himself into consideration for first-team minutes, probably next year, but he's put himself in a different conversation than he might have been earlier in the season. I really think he's done that here lately. He has stepped up in a big way.
Yeah, and you're seeing guys like Luis Fernando stepping up, and you're seeing, we've seen what George Campbell has been able to do this year. Lawrence Wyke is another example of that. You see George Bello getting minutes and getting everything squared away with the Atlanta United too. So there are a lot of guys that it's fun to watch, and the team having won 3 of their last 4, they're 30 points, and just looking forward to seeing where the final handful of games take them this season. One more home match, and it's another Wednesday against Bethlehem next month. But tough one against St. Louis this weekend because you won't have Andrew Carlton because of yellow card accumulation. So looking forward to seeing what Glassy has in mind for Atlanta United too, Stephen Glass and their bunch here in the home stretch.
All right, what do we have on the Twitter timeline?
Plenty. Michael Cinco was very busy this morning. I'm not on the Heineman train. Besides for good defensive work rate, he seems to be the 4th fiddle, parenthesis maybe 7th, in the Atlanta attack. Do we really need a defensive number 10? Help me appreciate him. Hashtag Overreaction Thursday.
He's not a defensive number 10. I think he's a box-to-box midfielder. I think the conversation for me is less about Heineman individually and more about the midfield definition with Heineman, Nagbe, Remedi. I think they're too similar. I think they end up doing things that are too similar. And I think you see too many situations like we saw last night and we saw against LAFC where teams are able to come through the middle of the park because they get into the same line. Remedi, Nagbe, Heineman get too high because they all want to go chase the game, and there's too much space between them and the back line. I think that's more of the issue than what Emerson Hyndman is as a player. I think when Hyndman is in a role, if you have Jeff Florinowicz behind him, or when the play works out to where Remedi or Nagbe are sitting deeper and Hyndman's free to go, he looks better. I think he looked good on the weekend against San Jose. He didn't really stand out to me yesterday either way. He didn't really grab my attention much. And that's, a bit of a problem, but I think Hyndman is a good fit in this team. Yeah. I just don't think the group fits very well when it's those three together. The best match he's had is probably the San Jose match overall since he came to Atlanta, where he had a goal. He had 4 shots. Also, the way the game played out, he had a lot of the ball. He had a lot of opportunities to make things happen. I'm trying to pull up how many touches he had there. So passes, it was upper third for him. He had 36 passes. The Columbus match, he created 4 chances. So he does have a bit of a playmaker vibe in him. He can hit a long pass. He's very technical. I think the thing for him is just showing his personality a little bit more on the field, taking more chances, not playing quite as safe. But when you get those 3 together, I think all of them are trying to figure out how to make it fit, and I just don't think you have the clear delineation of roles that suits any of them. I think all of them look better when you've had one way or the other. When you've had Barco in front and it's been more of a true 3-4-3, or you've had Jeff behind and it's been more of a true 6 behind 2 8s. I think each of the 3 players look better in those scenarios. I think Darlington Nagbe is probably the most complete and can just adjust. I think that's the type of game he has. Remedi and Hyndman suffer when it's 3 very similar players together. I think when that's not the case, either way, with a more attack-minded or a more defensively minded, they're better fits.
Michael also asks if FDB got too cute with the lineup.
No, I don't think he got cute with it at all. You didn't have Joseph, which I think a lot of the reaction to this game, that is completely getting forgotten. Like, you didn't have Joseph Martinez. You didn't have Ezekiel
Joseph
Barco.
Barco.
These things are important. Julian Gressel, look, they checked him out for an ACL injury on the field against San Jose. I was worried about it multiple times. I thought he was going to be subbed out multiple times. So for him to, after saying at training on Monday that he still felt the knee from the match, you give him the day off. You do have to think about the postseason. So you're not going to push that. Okay, that's one change. That starts a domino effect, because who is the most likely replacement as a right wing back to stay in the same shape? Franco Escobar. That means you have to incorporate someone else in the back line. Who has played the most lately as that additional center back? Florentine Pogba. Okay, that means LGP moves over to the right side of the back line. Done. Justin Merrim, lately, has been okay. He hasn't been great. Has he been tired? I don't know for sure, but he hasn't been as effective in recent matches. So you make the decision, all right, we're going to give him a day off, because he hadn't played a full 90 since the league match in Orlando. So maybe he needed some time here, so you don't start him. Who are you going to start there? Is it Dion Pereira? Could have been. When he came on, he didn't give you anything either, so I don't know if that would have changed it. And everybody has wanted to see Tito Villalba, and there's been lots of talk about him playing a wingback role. If you were ever going to do it, this was the time, because you knew that Anton Tinnerholm was out. You knew that NYC was going to have to get creative as to what they did on the right side, whether they're in a 3-4-3 or a 4-3-3 or whatever formation they do. They didn't really have an easy replacement at right back. So if you're looking at that and you're saying, do I want to go with Dion Pereira, who's played wingback and has had moments but hasn't had a ton of them lately? Or is this the game that I can really take a chance and play Tito Villalba as a wingback and see if that is something that I'll have in my deck of cards for the postseason? It was the game to do it, and it didn't work. It did not work. He could not beat Ibeagha on a regular basis, and that had a huge impact on the lack of chances created. Because if Tito Villalba was beating Ibeagha, that's going to force NYC to be a little simpler. It's going to force them back a little bit more to defend. It's going to keep Tajori Shradi deeper. And you're going to be creating chances because you're going to be breaking down that back line as NYC keeps their front four up high. Didn't happen. Got punished for it. So I don't think he got too cute with it. I totally see the logic in those moves. I think the Gressel one, you didn't have a choice. And the Villalba one, if you make the decision that, hey, Merrim needs time here or we want to keep him fresh and he hasn't been quite as effective lately, all right. Do you go Pereira or do you go Villalba? This is your chance to see what Tito has. And it wasn't there last night.
Final one from Michael. He says, no Parkey, Big Red, Joseph, what do you do when your vocal leader, LGP, is getting abused? I was thinking of pulling him and pushing Franco back, but that doesn't factor emotion.
He didn't have a right wing back either at that point. You know, you're piecing everything together if you do that, and that's where you get riskier, and I think that's where you do get a little cute. You could have pulled LGP and brought on Parkhurst. Look, LGP wasn't great, but nobody in the defensive side was great, and not all of the issues that looked bad on the center backs were all completely wholly created by the center backs. The goal late, for example, it's a turnover at midfield, and Pereira doesn't come back, and that starts the breakdown. That stuff happened on the other side as well. So LGP wasn't good last night, but it's not all on him. The leadership thing is a valid point. And I don't even know about vocal as much as emotional, because when Joseph is on the field, you get different reactions from players because of just the way Joseph plays. The mannerisms he has, just like we talked about with Zlatan. I think Joseph is far less negative with his body language and things that you get. But yeah, you're not getting the service to Joseph. You're gonna see it. He feels like he's not getting help in the press. You're gonna see it. He's gonna make that clear to you, and players feed off of that because he's the guy who leads them. You're not gonna say no to him when he's putting in the goals, difficult goals, week after week. So you didn't have that last night, and you didn't get anything else to replace it. That's the bigger issue, and it's something that you do have to consider going forward because you don't know how long you're going to have him out. I think for Montreal, you got to get Barco in. You got to trust in whatever the recovery plan is for him to get him ready to go for the postseason, because you can control that at this point. You can't control the injury with Joseph. You hope that it's just a pain threshold thing, and he's going to be able to contribute in the postseason. I think he will. I'd be shocked if he doesn't. With no ligament damage or no structural damage, you don't want to risk it now, but I think you're going to be okay with him. How long is the question. Barco, you've got to get him back into the mix, because if you can get back to where you were with Joseph, Barco, Pitti up top, two of your central midfielders behind that, your wing backs, probably Gressel and Merrim are your best options, although you do have defensive liabilities, and you're going to have to control the game to limit those liabilities. And your back three of LGP, Robinson, and Escobar. You get that lineup back together, you can win MLS Cup.
Yep.
But you've got a lot of work to do.
Dan Murphy with a couple of questions this morning, or thoughts.
It's afternoon.
Well, he sent it. He sent it 5 hours ago for the morning show time slot.
But we're afternoon now. It's 1:14.
SDH at brunch. He says, I've said it before and I'll say it again. We must play with a true number 6. The midfield combo again did not win enough of the duels Frank de Boer keeps harping on about. Thought Mo Adams was the lone bright spot, then a dumb yellow, and I'd rather see Cap than Pogba.
I think the Pogba question is valid at this point. What's going to work best? And I think you include Larinowitz in that conversation. I'm not. I feel like the midfield needs more definition, and it can come the other way. It doesn't have to be a 6, but the 3 together, it's too much like for me. I was happy with Mo Adams. I thought he came in and gave you something a little different. And, yeah, it's a yellow now. You're not going to see him in Montreal, so that rules that possibility. I'm assuming it'll be Jeff Larentowicz in the midfield because Remedi's suspended. And you go from there. And maybe that provides some of that definition. I think Barco will be in. And how does it look? Do you now decide in Montreal, no Joseph, you go Barco and Pitti up top, and you go back to that Open Cup semifinal type of setup where it's almost 2 false nines, dropping in, creating space for other people to run through. I think Emerson Heineman can thrive in that. I think Darlington Nagbe will have opportunities because Jeff will be sitting deeper to protect them. They can push forward into that space and kind of overlap your 2 front players. It's also going to create opportunities for Gressel, Merrim, or whatever the wide players are in this game. Hopefully it's the 2 of them, and we'll have to see. But I think that can work. You know me. I'm definitely the chairman of the Holding Midfielders Appreciation Society, so I'm down with a number 6 in any team because I think it just gives you that cover. But I think Atlanta's found another way to provide the definition in midfield with it being more of a 3-4-3 or a 3-4-2-1, if you want to get specific, and have the definition in the front side of it. Because then your 2 central midfielders have to think more like 6s than just pure 8s. And it just changes it a little bit. It changes the personality of the group.
The other thought from Dan is he wants to know where PT's Matricha moment is. Surely I have thought his skill would have taken over 2 or 3 games by now and won a game single-handedly, but his flashes are way too far apart. Time to step it up, son. Hashtag Overreaction Thursday.
See, but these are the things that are – I get it. I understand it. But Pity Martinez, let's get his stats, shall we? And let's get – Alexandru Matriza's. I think Matriza is an unbelievable talent. I love what Alexandru Matriza brings to the table. He's different. He's not Pitti. He's a different player. But I do really like his qualities and what he brings to the table. But I want to do a little comparison here. And if I can click things fast enough, it won't be too awkward in doing it. All right.
You've got my computer today.
No. It's me being half asleep. That's it. It's not about the computer. The computer's fast. All right. So Pity Martinez. Now, what his MLS stats? The only thing I don't like about Who Scored is that they don't give the secondary assists that MLS does. So they don't put that on the total. So I have to double check sometimes. And that's what I'm doing right now because I want to be thorough in this. That's what we're doing today. We're being very thorough in our information. Matriza, his totals, according to Major League Soccer this season, 12 goals, 3 assists. Pity Martinez, his totals, according to Major League Soccer this season, 5 goals, 9 assists. Okay, let's dig a little bit deeper. Let's compare in a little more detail. So your Who Scored match ratings, again, not exact, but a decent baseline. I generally agree with them on the whole. 7.2 for Matriza on the season, 7.02 for Pitti. I think that would surprise some people who look at Pity Martinez and say, he's been a flop or a failure, or you need to step it up. He's been one of the better players for the team. And I think he's an even better player when it's Joseph and Barco and Pitti. I think that changes the dynamic and helps him in a lot of ways. It would help just about anybody because that's some good running buddies.
Yes.
Key passes. And this is the difference between these two. Matriza's more of a goal scorer than a creator. Pitti's more of a creator than a goal scorer. And it shows in these types of things. I mean, it shows in the assists, obviously, but the key passes that create them. I mean, the chances you're creating. So Pitti is averaging 2 key passes per match. Matriza's averaging 1. Shots, Matriza 3.2, Pitti 2.6. I think it shows you a little bit of the the types of players they are. Dribbles, Matriza's a little bit better there, and that's one that I've been a little surprised because I know Pitti is a guy who can break you down 1v1, and he hasn't had as much success in that as I expected. That's been a big one for me. Pitti gets fouled a little bit more, 1.9 to 1.6. They're different. They're not like-for-like comparisons, and that's the biggest point that I wanted to make. Matriza is going to score more goals. Pitti is going to create more chances. Their roles are different too. I mean that plays into it as well. Pitti's being asked to create more as opposed to being as much of a scoring option. Matriza is as much of a scoring option as anyone with NYC because it's very well spread out with the Pigeons as to who's scoring the goals. You've got Eber with 15 now. You've got Matriza with 12. You've got Castellanos with 11. And Maxi Morales chipping in with 7. Atlanta, we know it's Joseph. And then everybody else. Different conversation. So I think they're different players. I don't think you can look at them and say, why aren't you doing this? I think for Pitti, the expectations are very, very high, and they should be. But when you look at who scored ratings, which, it's not an exact, but it gives you a decent baseline. Pitti Martinez would be number 5 out of regulars with NYC. He would be behind Eber, Matriza, Castellanos, Morales. He's right there with Alexander Ring, just slightly ahead of him. With Atlanta, and this is taking in their contributions, and yes, from a statistical standpoint, when you look at Atlanta's roster and ratings, it's Joseph, it's Barco next, and he hasn't been a regular this season because injuries and being away with the U20s. Gressel's next. Robinson is next. Pitti's right there with Robinson and LGP, right around 7. So I don't think it's as bad as you think. I think the expectations are different because Pitti comes in from River Plate and South American Player of the Year, and Matriza is coming in from Romania. The expectations aren't the same. Different players, though. That's the biggest thing that I want to stress. Is just they have different roles. They're different types of players. Pitti's not an out-and-out goal scorer. Matriza's far more of that. Pitti's going to always create more chances than Alexander Matriza. He's looking to create them for himself. Pitti's looking to create them from others. And Pitti created 5 last night. And you can always argue the quality of the chances that are being created. Are all of them the same? No, they're not. But you still have to create a chance to have a chance. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like you still have to make the play to give somebody a shot. He gave Brandon Vasquez some chances. He gave others chances too. Some of them didn't even result in a pure chance that I thought they should have. Pitti's passing is very, very good.
Mm-hmm. Daniel Price, why is it that when we lose, it isn't a close scoreline like a 2-1 or a 1-0? It has to be spectacularly bad.
It's a good question. I mean, in some ways, when you look at it and the way things could play out, you don't have the draws. And that's maybe what the bigger point of this is. New York City, 5 losses, 10 draws. Philadelphia, 7 draws, 9 losses. Atlanta has 12 losses on the year, only 3 draws. It's either or. Yeah. It is all or nothing. Red Bulls are kind of in that boat, 14-3-5. I'm trying to see if there's anybody. No one has fewer draws than Atlanta. Or LA Galaxy have 3. And they're kind of the same type of team, except they're far worse defensively. Mm-hmm. 16-13-3. I'm going to assume that it's a couple different reasons. One, Atlanta plays on the edge, and when you play on the edge and you're committing so many players forward, when it falls apart, it can fall apart badly. And it's a little bit harder to right that because this team's natural inclination is not to then sit back and get reorganized. Their natural inclination is to say, oh, you scored, we're going to go score 2. And sometimes that can lead to giving up 2 or 3 more.
Yes.
I think that's part of it. I also think the fact that, you are still kind of figuring all this out. And it's not ideal at the moment because, you've had injuries. You've had a lot of, mixing and matching in different places, miscommunication. The three center backs thing, I was not surprised that I wasn't surprised that we've had so many different combinations and no continuity because of all the yellow card accumulation and injury and different things. But I'm surprised that we haven't had any group play more than 3 games in a row since the Houston match. That's a little surprising that it's been that extreme. That can lead to a lot of breakdowns as well. That absolutely has a factor in it. So the other thing, the flip side to me too, is I think this team is strong mentally. And I don't think losing, instead of being in a situation like last night where you give up 2 and you're like, oh man, this is getting out of hand. Let's just shut up shop and limit the damage. I don't think Atlanta United has to do that. I think other teams might. I don't think Atlanta does. I think they shake it off quickly and they bounce back. Their record after losses has always been very good since last season. You don't see them lose a bunch of games in a row very often. I think they've lost 3 games in a row one time in club history. I think they've lost back-to-back only 3 times, if I'm doing my math correctly. Maybe 4 in club history. I think they bounce back quickly. So you combine a team that's very confident in their goal-scoring ability, a team that wants to get numbers forward, with a team that can bounce back from losses. I think you get these types of games sometimes where it's, oh, man, instead of limiting the damage, they made it worse by trying to go find something in the game. I still think if they'd found a second goal, it could have been a wacky ending. Yep.
Domer is in this morning, and he's channeling Sherry O'Terry's Saturday Night Live characters.
That's an odd decision, Domer. Okay.
It's not an overreaction, but these people need to simmer down now. Using the appropriate gif from the Sherry O'Terry character. Okay. Overcoming adversity makes sport interesting. If Atlanta United won every single match in championship, it would get really boring. Listen to your Atlanta United Herald at Longshoot.
No. Just don't overreact so much would be the only thing I would say. I mean, if somebody had told you yesterday afternoon that New York City would win this match, would you have been shocked?
Nope.
No. They're good. And you didn't have Joseph Martinez. And, yeah, they had people missing too, which created a lot of confusion. I mean, I can tell you a couple things. One, I was planning on doing a Q&A from Yankee Stadium, but we were unable to do so because we kept talking to everybody because it was like a homecoming of some sort because it's a lot of people that we've interacted with a lot over the years. Our friend Glenn Crooks, Janusz Mihalik, hanging out talking to Janusz for quite a bit. Kevin Egan pops in the booth. Ian Joy comes by, all telling stories, all talking about this game and the build-up. And we're all like, this should be fun, but we don't know what's going to happen here. Because of no Joseph, because of no Barco, because of no Tennerholm, because of no Keaton Parks, because of, well, who's it going to be at right back for NYC? Well, then, what's Atlanta going to do to replace Joseph? Is it going to be Vasquez? How's it going to look?
See, you said,
we don't know.
You said at 6 o'clock it was going to be fun for you last night because then you'd get to see what the lineups were going to be looking like on the release, and then the story could have more chapters from there. But, yeah, you were looking forward to 6 o'clock more than a lot of folks were yesterday.
Because I just had no idea what both teams were going to do, and then both teams took some chances with it. NYC, it paid off. So going in, though, taking all of that into consideration, New York City winning is not a shocking result. The scoreline being exaggerated is more shocking. But like we just said in the last question with Daniel, it comes back to that point that I think Atlanta's strong enough to take a chance and try to turn the game as opposed to limiting damage. And instead of losing 2-1 and having no shot, Atlanta would rather lose 4-1 and take their chances. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, in for a penny, in for a pound.
Yeah, I feel like that's the way this team's personality is. So that's a little different. And that affects some of these score lines. But it's just this is a long season. And Atlanta United has had a lot of challenges this year, and they've played more games than anybody else in Major League Soccer. And they've had injuries, and they've had yellow card accumulation, and they've had red card suspensions, and they've had things that they've had to deal with along the way. I think they've done it pretty well. They have a chance still to have the most points in Major League Soccer history following an MLS Cup championship. They are 2 points off of the post-shootout era mark set by Real Salt Lake in 2010 and 4 points off of the shootout era mark that DC United set in 1998. That should tell you how hard it is to defend a title in this league. Those things don't normally happen. Frank de Boer is having one of the best seasons as a first-year manager in league history. He'll be in the top 10, I think, in points per game when all is said and done. Maybe edging into the top 5, 6. Okay. You've got 2 trophies in the case. And, all right, if you want to throw Campiones Cup out and say it's just a glorified friendly, that's fine. Okay. You got the Open Cup. You're back in CONCACAF. You're the 4th best team in Major League Soccer right now. Not the 10th, not the 12th.
With all of that stuff that happened this year.
Yeah, you're not trying to battle your way into the playoffs. You're number 4. You're number 3 in goal differential. You know, I mean, it's just not that bad. That's why some of the overreaction, it's setting an expectation that is not fair in some ways. It's almost impossible to reach. You know? I mean, you can't do what LAFC is doing right now every time out. You can't win 20 games on a regular basis in this league. It doesn't happen. Atlanta had an opportunity. If they had won out going into the match last night, if they had won out, they could have hit back-to-back years with 20 wins. Only 2 clubs have done that in MLS history. I believe DC did it 3 years in a row in the very beginning of the league, and that was including shootout. It just doesn't happen very often. It's difficult to be that dominant in this league. Not even like winning the MLS Cup back-to-back years is very difficult. We've talked about that. It's only happened 3 times in league history. But just being dominant in a regular season, it doesn't happen because you play in CONCACAF. You have different expectations. This year, Atlanta added a degree of difficulty by going on a cup run. 32 matches in Major League Soccer so far. Campiones Cup match, which was not played at a walking pace. It was played at a level of intensity that is postseason. 4 CONCACAF Champions League matches. 5 U.S. Open Cup matches. 42 matches so far for Atlanta United. Next, Sporting Kansas City. Look at what they're doing this year. They played 6 matches in CONCACAF. They went 1 round further. They were knocked out in the first round of the U.S. Open Cup that they played in. Next, Toronto. Who has the better record? I think it's Atlanta. 8 points better. Toronto has played 32 league matches, 2 CONCACAF matches, 4 Canadian Championship matches, and they didn't win it. The other ones that were in CONCACAF, the Red Bulls, 1 Open Cup match that was knocked out. They played 4 in CONCACAF. Houston, they made it to the next round of Open Cup. So they played 2 Open Cup matches, 4 in CONCACAF. You've played at least 3 more matches than anybody else in the league. NYC, I believe, went out in the first round of the Open Cup as well. So they played 33 matches this year. It just adds up. Stuff adds up. It's difficult. What Atlanta's doing is far more impressive than it's getting credit for.
Baskers, speaking about NYC, I'm highly worried about the thought of an MLS Cup hosted in Yankee Stadium. Literally, can you think of anything worse for the league's image?
It's bad. It's bad to the point that you wonder if it would happen. It's that bad. Getting there is not going to be easy for them because you have the potential for conflicts with the Yankees' postseason schedule. And I guess it's Citi Field. And they've played there before. I would be blown away if NYC didn't go to Citi Field because it's available and you don't want to take a playoff game that much further away. So you go there in conflicts in October. I don't think you'd have a conflict by the time you got to MLS Cup with the baseball postseason schedule. I don't think so. I know the World Series is pushed into November now, but I don't think it would go that deep. But if NYC survives ground hopping for the postseason, is that what you want to see? MLS Cup at Yankee Stadium? No, I don't think anybody does. Are you gonna? No. Is the league gonna force them to do something else? I don't know. That's a really tricky spot.
Yeah,
very, very tricky spot, and I'm sure that all involved are hoping that they don't have to make a difficult decision because of how tricky it is.
Let's see. Under the weather. So we all complain about Yankee Stadium, but how big of an advantage is that field really for NYCFC? From my perspective, it looks like a completely different game in that field.
It plays different. I think it's a challenging for NYC as well in that they're a team that they want to play good soccer, and you just can't really there. I mean, they get more experience playing there than anybody else, and it has an effect. You've only lost one time there this season. You didn't lose there very much last season. I think just one loss, maybe two. No, one loss. So 2 losses there in the last 2 seasons, complete home schedules. Tells you how much of an advantage it is. You had 2 losses there in 2017. So 4 losses in 3 years at home. Yeah, it's a tough place to play. It has an effect. I think if you ask Dome Tarrant and you ask those players, they would rather play on a wider field and play. But the fact that they get more reps there than anybody else, yeah, it's an advantage. It helps. I have an even bigger issue with the quality of it because I feel like that has decreased over the years, and I feel like the number of groundskeepers who are coming out pregame and at halftime to fix things with various garden implements, which, God, they break out all kinds of stuff when they're trying to make this field more playable. I feel like it's gotten worse, so that's an even bigger issue. But the fact is NYC's got to figure something out, and I don't know how it gets figured out. I am not a New York City politician. I do not know all of the issues that they are facing in terms of having their own stadium. I can gather that it is not exactly easy to acquire land at a price that makes any kind of sense in the 5 boroughs. I understand. But this is not the solution long term. And it's getting to a point that any kind of term is starting to become an issue. It's just not a good look. It's not the look that the league wants. So I hope that they can fix it. And I hope that they can figure something out very soon. And MLS Cup and the postseason, they're going to be affected by playing on this field or Citi Field, which I don't think is all that much wider.
And at least you could shave the baseball mound down at that point. So you can play it a little further back with the foul line to foul line as opposed to having it pushed.
I mean, it's kind of reverse thinking here, but normally you have to set your field dimensions and be consistent with them. You know, you look at fields, pitches that have the ability to be wider or bigger. You can't go to game and adjust them. You can't, like, if you're the LA Galaxy, who I think can go wider. If you're Colorado, for example, I think Colorado can go as wider than anybody else in the league. You can't say, like, okay, well, we're playing this team we're playing Atlanta, and they like to stretch the field. We're going to bring the field in 5 yards for this game. You can't do that. So would New York City be allowed, if they can get more width at Citi Field, to actually use it? Can they play on a different dimension pitch? They shouldn't. It's a different building, so maybe that's what's going to give them the out. Honestly, the difference might be that it is actually 70 yards wide field.
Yeah.
Not allegedly. Glenn Crook swears it's 70 yards.
Yeah, I was going to say, Glenn did on his Insta, and he measured it out and says it's 70.
I'm skeptical still just from looking at it, because you start doing math. It's very easy to look at a field and have a ballpark of how wide it is. From side of the 18 to side of the 18, it's 44 yards everywhere, because the 18 is the 18. It's the same size everywhere. It is 18 yards from post to end, and it's 8 yards wide of the goal. So that's 44. You can see where the hash mark is, the 10-yard mark from the corner flag. That's marked in every field. That's another 10 on both sides. That gets you to 64. The difference is the amount of space between the hash mark and the edge of the 18. So, for example, right now, Eibar is hosting Sevilla in La Liga. Eibar is playing on a fairly narrow pitch. It's wider than Yankee Stadium, not by a ton. It's not that much wider, because
that is a cramped stadium if it's Eibar's. Yeah,
you look at the mark from the hash to the 18. I think that is 70. I think, and I think it's more space than you have at Yankee Stadium. I don't know. I'm not walking it off, so I don't know. But looking at it last night, looking at that gap, it didn't look like 3 yards on either side from the hash to the edge of the 18. It didn't look like that. It looked more like 1.5 to 2. So I don't know. It has an effect, and it's not good for good soccer. I think NYC plays as good as you possibly can on that type of field. I think they've built a team that can play good soccer on a normal size pitch, but they can also play as good of a soccer match, a good of quality as you can get on a bandbox. Gives them an advantage, though, and it's not a good look for the league.
Nope. Shiva is still overreacting to yesterday, and she thinks the reason is the way that the team played in. The scoreline wasn't expecting a win yesterday, would have been satisfied with a loss, but not a 4-1 loss, and totally getting outclassed.
Again, totally getting outclassed. 9 chances created to 6. I think NYC was better in the moments that they needed to be. I don't know how much you want to say they got outclassed. That's subjective. I was a little more worried about the response, especially in the first half. It didn't really feel like anything was changing as the game was sliding away. It didn't feel like there was either, a change in attitude, and that's maybe one thing that was needed. You didn't have somebody go clean somebody out, which sometimes is needed. Sometimes if Alexander Matriz is just killing you, going on a hard tackle if you can catch him. Sometimes it's how teams play Miguel Almiron. It's how teams play Pity Martinez. Sometimes you have to make that tackle. Didn't see that. You didn't see things get a little more organized. You didn't see less space between the lines. It felt very same. Second half, it was better. But it's also NYC with a 3-0 lead, taking their foot off the gas, and it showed. That's more of it for me. The level of being outclassed or the level of the scoreline doesn't make me feel differently about this team going forward. what I hope is that you see the same progression that you saw with this team at Yankee Stadium in 2017 and 18. 2017 at Yankee Stadium, 3-1 loss. It felt like that one last night. 2018, 1-1 draw, and you conceded fairly late. You got a goal kind of early in the second half. 2018 postseason, you won 1-0.
Yep.
You're going to need more than a draw to avoid penalties in a postseason matchup this year at Yankee Stadium. And you're going to have to, unless they get upset, you're going to have to go to Yankee Stadium to get back to MLS Cup. So you've got to see progression. You have to take lessons out of how this played out. How do you approach it next time? I'm cool with testing it in this one. I'm cool with, okay, go play your game and see if it works. It didn't work. So now what? Do you go in and say we're going to play 5-4-1? 5-3-2. It's going to be a true line of 5 with 2 defensive midfielders in front. Are we just going to sit, concede possession, sit and defend, try to play on the counter? Those are valid options. It worked in the postseason last year. I mean, it's a valid option. It's not something this team has done this season. They've not been a sit deep and defend and play on the counter team. Even when they were more defensive in the 4-3-3, it wasn't last year's postseason. But that might be the way that you deal with Yankee Stadium. And now you've got, points to learn from. So hopefully you do. You have to take full advantage of it because, this game has to have more meaning than just a 4-1 loss. And that's what I hope happens.
Nathan Pugh, in my opinion, LGP is one more bad tackle or out of position to be sold for any other offer that comes in for him. I want more from my defender.
Oh, that's a big overreaction, Nathan.
Yes, and then 2, I really want Tigres or Club America to get drawn against NYCFC at some point in CONCACAF Champions League so they have international pressure for a new pitch.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. NYC should get past the first games in CONCACAF next year. They should. They should get past whoever they see from Central America. I think anybody in MLS should be a favorite in that matchup. But then they're going to get somebody. They're going to get Club America. They're going to get Leon. They're going to get Santos Laguna. Or they're going to get Tigres. Those are your 4 Mexican teams. They could get Montreal. You could get the Canadian option. That can happen too. But if things play out the way they should and the U.S. teams win, the Mexican teams win, you could have a Canadian team in the mix on either side of that. Then that's what you're going to see in the next round. And you think the U.S. media talks about that pitch. Get Piojo, Miguel Herrera there. See what he has to say.
Oh.
Get Tuca Ferretti there. If you haven't seen Tuca Ferretti, oh my goodness. Go watch some videos of Tuca Ferretti screaming at his players at training sessions and walking off, stomping off because they can't do what he's telling them to do. Yeah, you think he's going to have fun on that pitch? Oh, man.
And then Michael Head. Horrible games by LGP and Tito. I love them both, but I think their time here has passed. I'd be shocked if Tito's here next year. He had a great opportunity last night and spit the bit. # Mickey Mouse pitch.
He had a great opportunity last night, and it wasn't good. I think Tito's in a very different situation. Look, guys, this is the epitome of overreaction Thursday. To say that Leandro Gonzalez-Pirez's time is done here, you got to go back to the whole season. You have to look at the whole season. He's been one of the better center backs in the league. He has not been at the same level he has been in the last 2 years. No, he hasn't. But has he been bad? No. All season? No. He hasn't. It's a huge overreaction to say that you need to move on from him, no questions asked. Now, you don't know what the contract situation is going to be. You don't know what the ask is going to be. You don't know what the salary number is going to be they're going to be able to find on common ground. They might not be able to find that. That can happen. But to say that he's been so bad that you don't even think about bringing him back or you just accept whatever, I have to thoroughly disagree. I think every team in MLS bar 2 or 3 would snatch up Leandro Gonzalez-Pirez in a heartbeat. I think Toronto would.
Yep.
Let's look at the table. Let's work backwards here. NYC, I think he's a better player than Callens or Chanot, but I think they have a really good partnership that NYC's happy with.
Yeah.
Philadelphia has a lot of options. They've got Mark McKenzie, who's out injured now. Austin Trusty has fallen off for some reason. Jack Elliott has had a great year, and they turned to Aurelian Collin last night. It worked. So he was even able to get away with what should have been a penalty at the end because he's Aurelian Collin, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if LGP gets away with that one. But Philadelphia has options. DC, Birnbaum, and Briant. I think LGP would push Briant out of that starting lineup. Red Bulls have a very good center back pair. Leave them out of it. Long and Parker, very good. Toronto has tried to pair somebody up with Mavinga for a long time. Drew Moore is, I think, towards the end of his career, he would go to Toronto and start. He would go to New England and start. He would go to Chicago and start. He'd go to Montreal and start. He'd go to Orlando and start. He'd go to Columbus and start. He'd go to Cincinnati and start. Out west, LAFC, probably not, although I'm not 100% sure of that. I think the partner for Zimmerman has been in flux a bit, but I think they're happy with
the
where they're
age
at.
of Harvey and Beta.
They're outside. No, they're outside backs. He's not playing outside back.
Okay.
He's not playing. You gotta keep it specific to the position. As a center back, I think you could pair him with Walker Zimmerman if you're LAFC, and you would probably consider that. But Danilo Silva has played. I'm trying to check their center backs and who's played the most minutes. Danilo Silva has played some. He's been good. Would you take LGP over him? I probably would. Looking at the who scored ratings for just a comparison point, he's been better than Walker Zimmerman this year. Dejan Jakovic has played 3 times. He's been better than him. Eddie Segura is the one I was trying to think of. Not Danilo Silva. I had him mixed up. Eddie Segura, 31 starts. LGP's been better, according to the who scored rating, by a pretty good bit. 7 to 6.74. I think Bob Bradley would take LGP over Segura.
Yep.
Minnesota, I think he's a better player than Michael Boxall. I think Iko Para has been very, very good this year. But I think LGP is a better player than Boxall. I think LGP would walk into a starting spot for the LA Galaxy, no questions asked. Seattle, with Chad Marshall gone, with Roman Torres now back but missing so many games. Kim Keehee, Xavier Arriaga. LGP is better than anybody they have. Same with RSL. Same with Portland. I think he's a better center back than Matt Hedges in Dallas. I think he's better than anything San Jose has. I think Matias Almeida would take him in a heartbeat. Colorado, Houston, Sporting, Vancouver. I think he'd play for any of those teams.
Yeah.
I think you move on from LGP because he's been so bad. I just think that's a huge overreaction. I think when he's been bad, he's been very bad. He has had some games that have shocked you. This season, he's had more of those than we've seen in the past. Before that, you're probably going back to the Houston game last year, and that's the one. This season, he's maybe had 2, 3 possibly that have been like, whoa, what happened? But still, overall, what, 18 of 24 teams he would start for?
Yeah.
And that might be a little conservative. So I think when you have a player like that, you don't just run him out of town for nothing. You have to look at the bigger picture. Now, the salary negotiation and doing a new contract, that adds an element of what's my limit that I would go to on him. That changes the conversation. But just put him on the market, you would have a lot of teams who would say, okay, how much? Because he would start for most teams in this league.
Let's see who's next in line. Chris Hutchison, since this is Overreaction Thursday, I do not think we'll see this team advancing beyond the second round of the playoffs, and that's if we survive the first round. That showing last night was stunningly bad and is just a continuation of the lackluster play that we've seen since the break.
Oh, lackluster play since, I guess, the Gold Cup break?
I guess.
Okay. I'm going to run through it real quick since they went to a 3-5-2. Win, loss, win, 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 win. This is all competitions, by the way. Loss, win, win, loss. So since the 3-5-2, the Houston game, since you went to this formation that has had the team playing better, which is not a small sample size, you have lost at LAFC, you have lost at Philadelphia, Columbus at home, and at NYC. So you've lost to the best team in the league, potentially the best regular season team in league history. You've lost to the best team in the East on the standings, and you've lost to the next best team in the East in the standings on the road. All games that you're not, if you're favored, you're not favored by much. The Philadelphia game, you might have been favored. And I don't know if that was really fair to the Union. Columbus game at home, you lost. Columbus played their game plan to a T. You did not play well. Flat out. So, lackluster? Okay. I maybe am misdefining it. I think that's a little much. In those games, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, you've lost 4 times? 11 and 4? Now, you don't have any draws, and that gets back to the all-or-nothing nature of it. 11 and 4, you beat Club America, you lifted a trophy, you won 2 Open Cup matches, a semifinal and a final, you lifted a trophy. I think lackluster is incorrect. I really do. Can they be better? Sure. I think NYC can be better. I think LAFC can be better. They hadn't won in 5 before last night when they beat Houston, who's bad. I think any team in this league can be better. I think Atlanta has definitely room to get better. Got to get Barco back, get Joseph in the postseason. You look at right now, who they would be seeing in the postseason, they would be playing Toronto at the Benz. Do you think Toronto's the favorite in that match?
Nope.
No, I don't think so at all. I don't think it's an easy match. Toronto has been difficult to beat. They've had a lot of draws, but they had went through, and I think they're still on it, 8 matches unbeaten in league play. Okay, that's going to be a challenge. You could see New England in that spot, depending on where Atlanta falls. Atlanta would be
much improved
comprehensively, but much improved, sure. But yeah, I mean, New England's still 10, 12, and
yes,
as we've pointed out many, many times, like lately they have not been what they were when Bruce Arena first took over.
No.
Not at all. You could see the Red Bulls or DC depending on stuff in that first round. I think Atlanta and DC, you would favor Atlanta pretty strongly. Red Bulls, you're going to worry because of the press, because historically it's been an issue. And you couldn't beat them at home this year. You gave up the game late when you found a winner and you had your moment and threw it away. So Red Bulls, I could absolutely see the concern about it. But Atlanta's a better team than the New York Red Bulls. In 2019, I think that's hard to say that they're not. So I think the lacklusterness, and they're probably not going to win their first playoff game at home, that type of stuff I think is very overreactionary. And that's where I hope, one, that people can understand how difficult it is to have the year that Atlanta's having in this league, because it hasn't happened very often. 2, I hope that people can realize that one match doesn't define a season. And I hope that when you look at these matches and you look at these games, it's not with the expectation that Atlanta should win big every time out, even on the road. This is not a fair expectation. It's just not. Atlanta's got 2 trophies in the bag this year. Doesn't mean that they can just do whatever because it doesn't matter. But it does mean that they're not lackluster and that they're a bad team or they've had a bad year or whatever. They're 4th in the league. It's kind of hard to complain when it's at that point. Yes, there's room to grow. But if you also said Atlanta goes on a run and beats Toronto and then right now goes to Philadelphia and wins and then goes to Yankee Stadium in the Eastern Conference Final and plays defensively and grinds out a result and goes to MLS Cup, like that wouldn't shock me. I'd be more shocked about losing to Toronto. So, I don't know. I mean, obviously, I'm seeing it day in and day out. I have a different perspective. I get that. But I want to pass that on, and it's just 11-4 winning 2 trophies in your last 15 games is not lackluster. It can't be.
Curry Cole Smith, when people ask me how I feel about the season after last night's loss, I like to provide historical perspective. Only 6 clubs in MLS history have won MLS Cup and then won hardware the following year.
Mm-hmm. It's really, really difficult. And a lot of it is just the number of matches that piles up. I mean, that to me is what jumps out at me. And it was the same thing in the Philadelphia game. When you played Philadelphia going into that international break, that was game 15 for you since the beginning of July. It was game 10 for Philadelphia. That's in that short period of time. Now you look at the whole season. Atlanta United's played 42 matches. 42. NYC has played 35. That's it. 3 Open Cup matches. They got to 35. How many has Philadelphia played? Philadelphia has played 33. They lost in their first Open Cup match. I mean, how many has LAFC played? Let's look. They have played 35. 3 Open Cup matches. Lost at home.
Bumped out in the round of 16.
You're talking about the 3 best teams in the league having played 7 or more fewer games in the year than Atlanta United. It adds up. It just adds up. And all the things we've talked about schedule-wise, and this is the tricky year for Atlanta because you're going to Vancouver, Seattle, Portland, L.A., Utah. All very long trips. The funkiness of the schedule with it being compressed. In a year where Atlanta plays 42 matches, they're not doing it going into the final 2 weeks of the regular season. That would be a month later in previous years. So you're taking that and you're chopping a month off from previous years to just add to the degree of difficulty that Curry Cole Smith that Cole's talking about here with teams winning MLS Cup and then winning a trophy the next year. The fact that they were able to win the Open Cup is a very impressive achievement. And I think it's being treated as an afterthought. And the fact that they are 3rd in the East, 4th overall, 1 point out of 2nd in the East, and have had the year that they've had, it feels like it's being looked at as this awful season, and it's just not. It's very difficult. And it's been more difficult this year with the schedule even more compressed and the travel they've had. So, look, okay, if you want to call all that excuses, that's fine. I just hope that people are fair in the criticisms. Has LGP been as good as he was the previous 2 years? Nope, he's not. He's not. Does that mean he might not be back? It might. I think his contract situation is going to have a bigger, point there. But the fact that year 3 was, the worst of the 3, yeah. it could absolutely factor into that decision being made. And that's the game. Is it going to mean other people could be gone? Yeah, it could. Lots of contracts coming up. You can't keep everybody because you do have a cap. You do have limitations. But to say that the year has been a failure or bad or whatever, I think is a very big overreaction. I truly do. There's still games to go. That could change depending on how it finishes. But at this stage, I think this year has been a success. And it's hard to argue that it's not when you look at the big picture.
Jorge B. said that Gimnasia lost 2-1 in a controversial penalty call.
Yes.
And the team is 0-2. Next opponent is River Plate. Diego's words of wisdom regarding the referee. You can't say nothing to Mastrangelo. He is bad. He was born bad, and he will die being a bad referee. # Diego Cam is awesome.
Well, that about sums it up. That would probably get a fine from Major League Soccer, I would expect. I would think that there would be a FedEx envelope arriving for that manager if they said that in Major League Soccer.
Mm-hmm.
And Gimnasia is bad. I mean, you're talking about a team that's at the bottom of the table for a reason. The publicity experiment of bringing on Diego Maradona to be your manager made sense for Gimnasia. They've made money where they weren't making money before. They've gotten attention that they weren't getting before. And there's still time and room to get a couple results and get out of that relegation spot. So Diego's Diego. He's not a master tactician. He's going to be a man motivator. He's going to be a man manager. If he gets something out of that, then you tip your hat to him and you give him credit. But to expect him to go in and fix a team that's been that bad for 3 years, well, there's a reason they're at the bottom of the relegation table.
And then, yes, Jorge, we did see the video of Chris Wondolowski hanging out with the Ultras. That was amazing.
Awesome.
The Colonel, afternoon Colonel, looking at the remaining schedule, it seems that Orlando City has a better possibility of making the playoffs than any of the 3 teams ahead of them, finishing level on 42 points and ahead on matches won.
Yep. It is. It does look pretty good because New England has to have NYC come to town, and then they have to come to Atlanta. I can see New England getting 0 out of that. I think they can get a point at home against NYC, who now they do have to play for something. They don't have the East locked up, which would have helped New England a lot. NYC will be missing, I don't remember off the top of my head, I think 2 players who are suspended due to yellow card accumulation after last night. I think Ring is one. I'll have to go back and look. They're going to be shorthanded. You're probably not going to have Tenor Home back either. Keaton Parks, hamstring. Are you going to risk it? Probably not, but maybe there's been progress. So NYC will be struggling a little bit to field a coherent 11 in New England. I think New England can get the point that they need to get out of Dodge. Orlando's got to go to Cincinnati and get a win, which Chicago couldn't do. And then Orlando's got to beat Chicago on the final day. And Orlando, after having the lead in Houston against a Houston team that's done for the year and blowing it, I have no confidence in Orlando City.
Daniel Price doesn't know how to feel about the ref last night. Felt like he was all over the place, had no idea where the bar is. Not only that, it felt like he missed a bunch of calls. Gave some calls that didn't make any sense.
I thought he was inconsistent. I thought early on, letting everything go, then started calling it really tight. Calling the captains over to have a conversation and then giving Ring a yellow was weird. The mechanics of all that were strange. It was too inconsistent for my liking. I don't think it had much of an effect. I mean, the big calls were correct. The penalty for Atlanta was correct. The penalty for NYC was correct. Didn't miss anything on the goals. So we've seen worse. I just didn't like the inconsistency. That would have been my biggest critique.
Update from Glenn Crooks about NYCFC and the playoffs. MLS title game November 10, November 9. Princeton is scheduled to play Dartmouth in college football at 3:30 at Yankee Stadium.
I know for baseball they've said they need 48 hours. I don't know if they need that for football. But, again, do you want to play MLS Cup final at Yankee Stadium after a football game the day before? Don't think the pitch is going to be in great quality.
Nope. And Chris Hutchison also says the only thing worse than last night's game were the grocery store taquitos I fixed for supper.
Ooh. Yeah, that's one I always say no to. You like the idea. It's like, ooh, that'll be quick. That'll be easy.
Impulse buy.
It's never good. They never work out. Just go to Quick Trip, get the taquitos there, go to get empanadas at Racetrack if you're looking for something along those lines, or just get pizza rolls. They don't go wrong. The pizza rolls are always a safe bet. The taquitos from the grocery store, Diego would probably eat them. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, I'm sure he would.
Yeah, I don't think he would get the E out of Diego on taquitos from the grocery store. I think the joke back in the old big soccer days when Diego had really ballooned up was Diego's love of Hot Pockets. I don't think there was anything to it. I think it was just a joke that somebody started that made a lot of sense. So, yeah. Pizza rolls or taquitos or whatever else you want to throw out of the freezer into the microwave, I think Diego would be excited.
Let's see. Shiva and others are mentioning on Joseph's Insta story the fact that he is back on the treadmill.
Very nice. That is a good sign. Look, if you don't have structural damage and there's nothing broken, there's no ligaments, it's a pain threshold, and we know Joseph can deal with that. It's also if you get hit, does that make it worse? Does that set you back further? Do you want to do that right now and have that happen and then be in a race against time for the playoffs? You do have to consider those things. You've got 2 weeks from the final game of the regular season until your postseason. You've got maybe 13 days, maybe, between that. Is that enough time to give him a run out against New England and then say, you know what, we're going to wait till the postseason? Let's take it this way. The Braves just shut down Acuna, right? He's had a hip injury, and they don't want anything to affect the postseason. In baseball, it's not like you're worried about Acuna being on the same page with his teammates, right? It's all about the individual performance from him. You want him to be feeling as good as possible. If Joseph doesn't play until game one of the postseason, are you worried about Joseph fitting back into the team? Are you worried about Joseph's quality of performance? No, you're worried a little bit about sharpness, I guess, but Joseph's also a position where it's not quite the same. You'd be willing to take that gamble than play him through pain and aggravate it and make it worse. That's my assumption. But a lot of it is going to come down to how he's feeling and what Joseph wants to do, because he's earned that. If Joseph knocks on the manager's door and says, I want to play, he's probably going to play.
Tell him no?
He's earned that right. So you might advise him, you might warn him, you might say, you know what, I don't want to risk it. I don't want you to get hurt for worse and miss anything. You're not going to do any more damage to it. It's just going to hurt, and you could set yourself back and make it hurt worse. But he's the type of player, and his importance to the team, he's going to get to make that case, and he's probably going to win that case. So a lot of it is going to be down to how much pain he can handle.
Tofka and Michael Head went back and went after the VAR call for the penalty against San Jose and Philly. Tofka thought it was very close, but it was a penalty. Michael Head Says, how long are we the fans going to put up with this nonsense, meaning VAR? Seriously, if you were attending the San Jose match last night as a first-time attendee, would you want to go back? VAR is killing the flow and enthusiasm for the game. Same discussion going on in EPL, hashtag clear and obvious.
You're never getting rid of VAR. Give it up. It's not going away. These are the same things that happened with instant replay in football. And what did they do? They expanded it this year to include pass interference, which I think is going to be a nightmare, but that's just me. I think the process has to be better. I think the consistency has to be better. But the actual existence of it, it's not going away. It's not going to go away, in my opinion. It has to be utilized better. And it can't be utilized in the situations that the second one was for. If I don't understand the argument for allowing the first goal to stand when you look at the replay, because that is exactly the goal that 3 years ago you're screaming about the player being offside when you see the replay. Don't you want to get that right? VAR, that's what it's there for. Get those right. The judgment calls are the ones that I have a problem when VAR gets involved, because that's not what it should be doing. So I think that the argument about the first goal being allowed to stand is just wrong. And if it was allowed to stand, you'd be arguing the other way. The judgment on the last one was completely handled incorrectly, in my opinion, because nothing in the replay changed the way that the referee saw the play. It just gave them an opportunity to have a different judgment, which is not what we want from replay. Those are the ones that can't happen. Are casual football fans, or are football fans, saying, I'm not going to watch the NFL because of replays?
Nope.
I don't think so. I think that's something that comes up that people will throw out there when they're yelling about things, but
it's not going to change their viewing habits.
No, I think it does add to the length of the game, and that's a bigger picture issue. But the actual existence of replay, I think more people would want it than not want it. I think replay in soccer has to get to that point, because we talked about it before. We went through this exercise with it. The NFL introduced replay and then took it away for a while. And every year there was lobbying to bring it back, and they eventually did in the type of format that we see now. I think it was 7 years that they did not have replay. And it came up in the rules committee every year they didn't have it, about bringing it back and tweaking it and making it work the way they wanted, as correctly as it possibly can, being operated by humans. That's what IFAB and the leagues have to do here, is they have to consistently look at it and say, how can we make it better? How can we make it more streamlined? How can we limit the situations that it gets involved in that it shouldn't? And how can we make it faster? And that should be the focus. The focus is not going to be getting rid of it. It should improve the game. And I think oftentimes it does. On rare occasions that it doesn't, those are the ones that we remember. It's just like a 2-goal lead is the most dangerous lead in soccer. No, yes. It's not. It's a 2-goal lead. A 1-goal lead's far more dangerous. We know this.
Because you're that much closer to being tied, people.
Yes. But you remember the times that a team blows a 2-goal lead, because it doesn't happen as often.
Oh, they've cut the margin to single digits. They've got it inside 10 in college hoops.
That doesn't get the same thing as much. I don't think that's exactly the right comparison. It's just the cliche about a 2-goal lead being the most dangerous.
Oh, yeah, it's most dangerous.
No, it's not. It's not more dangerous than a 1-goal lead. Teams blow a 1-goal lead far more than they blow a 2-goal lead. The statistics historically back it up. You just remember the 2-goal leads that were blown. Right now with VAR, 95%, I'm pulling a number out of the air on it, of times that VAR is involved, you don't think about it after it happens. It's done. The times that you think about it either took too long, or it was used incorrectly, or you disagree with the decision.
Yeah.
which you might be wrong. Like that happens.
Yeah,
too.
if you're having a fan reaction to something that impacted you directly with VAR.
I have thought I saw something. I've looked at a replay. I've thought I had it right. I've been wrong. It happens. Referees, it's difficult to do what they do. They get more calls right than they miss. But when they miss them, it gets magnified. And we've had a lot of things we've talked about with referees lately. We had that issue earlier in the season. I think overall the pool has to get better. It has to get deeper. They have to work on referee development more. But we see the errors. We talk about the errors. We don't talk about the good calls as much.
You never give somebody a compliment these days for doing something, for getting you on time from point A to point B. You don't compliment the Uber driver. You just yell at him and give him 1 star when you're late.
I don't yell at Uber drivers. Who yells at Uber drivers? Do you?
Or taxi drivers. I don't, because the Uber drivers and the Lyft drivers I know are usually pretty cool, and they do what, and they hang out and they do their thing.
Get stuck in traffic. Don't yell at them. That's not going to help.
It's like, you yell at the taxi driver. You yell at the other guy in traffic who's there in front of you.
I've done that.
You don't compliment. Yeah, you don't compliment somebody these days for doing something well. You yell at them for doing something wrong.
Yeah. You also just remember the mistakes. So it's what it is. It's life. But I don't think VAR is going anywhere. I think it can be utilized better, and I think MLS needs to continue to tweak it along with IFAB, along with the Premier League, all of them. Everybody's freaking out in the Premier League because you have it. And a lot of the freakouts were reminding me of the second half of the 2017 season when it came in MLS. And also, I think some of the freakouts are just absolutely 100% incorrect. I think you've got some pundits who don't understand what VAR is, and they're yelling from a soapbox instead of learning about what it is, what it should do, and what it can do. And a lot of times their criticisms are incorrect because they're still getting used to it.
Daniel Price apparently hung out with the Suburban Ultras at Pizzeria Zuri last night. And apparently Percy Herrera finally won something.
Oh, that's good. He had a horrible Orlando-esque losing streak on raffles, I heard.
And so now apparently he has won something. So shout out to everybody at Pizzeria Zuri. And as a matter of fact, I'm wearing my Pizzeria Zuri t-shirt at this very second.
Very nice.
Dan Murphy stopped at a pub for some fish and chips for a SDH brunch and now has to suffer through the game again. It's worse the second time, he says.
I chose not to turn it on. I saw that it was going to be on. I did not. I lived through it, and I'm okay with that. And
one time's plenty. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll look at some sequences in it later and see what else is there. I probably won't dig too deep into it because Montreal is a very different kind of match, and I want to focus a little bit more on the Montreal side of things. But it'll be one that if these teams match up again in the postseason at Yankee Stadium or at a similar-sized venue, then I think you go back and you look at the breakdowns, and you also look at the opportunities that you didn't take advantage of, because I think those were there too.
Mm-hmm. Vine City FC with a couple.
Okay, these might be the last two.
Okay, well, let me then, all right, because we got a few.
All right, I'll try to hit them a little bit faster. I don't want to shortchange anybody.
No. We can get to the bottom of the hour. I think we'll be okay.
Steve been verbose. I'm sorry.
Nothing wrong with being verbosity. Vine City, first one. I wonder what the historical record at Yankee Stadium's field is. It seems like the counter works better than a possession style.
I think so. I mean, if you're going to play possession, you're going to have to be better at possession than NYC, and that's not easy to do under Dome Toronto. So 2019, 1 loss. 2018, 1 loss. 2017, 2 losses. 2016, 3 losses. And remember, NYC wasn't as good in 2016 either. 2015, year 1, they didn't make the postseason. NYC 6-7-4 at home. They were just not a very good team. So in the last 3 years, 4 losses. I think it's just a tough place to go in and win. I'm trying to remember what the losses were. Portland this year, and yep, that's what they did. Vancouver got a draw last year, but I don't remember
what
the loss was. I mean, they have some draws. I'm focusing a little bit more on just the outright loss. I don't remember who beat them at Yankee Stadium regular season last year, and I don't remember the 17 games. But Portland this year, the one loss, that's exactly what they did. They just defended and countered. I tend to think that based off what happened last night, Atlanta would do that in a Eastern Conference final or Eastern Conference semifinal if it falls that way. I don't think it will. In an Eastern Conference final, I think that's what Atlanta would do. If you've got Barco, Pitti, and Joseph and you're flying, you might not be as defensive as you would be if you had last night's availability in a knockout game. If you were in a knockout game last night, I think Atlanta would play it very differently based off who they had available. I think with all the attacking options at full strength, you might be a little more expansive, but I think you would drop into a defensive stance if you're forced to.
Then also, Vine City says, worry that our defense one-on-one is good enough against most of the league, but consistently gives up multiples against top players.
I don't like the defense being a one-on-one, period. Yeah, I think that happens too often. One-on-one, 50-50. I mean, you can shade a little either way, but you're not going to stop over a season 60, 70% of 1v1 opportunities. You're not. It gets into too many 1v1s, 2v2s right now, and that's something Atlanta has to be really careful about. And I think that the matches that they've struggled in, that's what's happened. It's gotten disjointed, and it's been too easy when opponents break pressure or break the midfield or go direct and catch you flat-footed, and you've had those opportunities happen. You look at the San Jose goal, you look at the Columbus goals. Too many times it's been too easy for opponents to get 1v1 opportunities and win them. Miles Robinson has won a ton of 1v1 battles this year. LGP's won a bunch as well. Escobar's won his fair share, but you don't want to keep putting them in those situations. And that's a little bit more of a structural issue.
NYCFC's 2018 loss was against the Revs. 2017 was Orlando City and Portland.
Wow, they lost to Brad Friedel's New England Revolution. I believe that was a sit-back and counter game, if I remember it correctly.
Yeah, OCSC was 2-1. Portland was 1-0 in September of that year. Katie Weaver, late tune in, so pardon if it's been discussed, but could we possibly be looking fondly back at our clean sheet run when we were, quote, slow and boring, end quote, question mark, or could this game be our Toronto, a wake-up of sorts?
I don't think it's a wake-up. I think you just got beat. I don't think they're asleep. I really don't think that's the case. I think you just got beat by a good team. You didn't take advantage of the situations you had, and you had them. If Tito Villalba wins 4 of his 7 dribbling duels with Sebastian Ibeagha instead of 1, 3 more times that Villalba gets loose down the right, fair to say at least a couple more chances are going to get created out of that. Others, Justin Merrim, when he came on, he had 4. He went 0 for 4. If he wins 2, get to 50%. You get another chance created. That gets you to the same number of chances created as NYC had. You would expect it to be better. So I don't think it's a wake-up call. I don't think it needs to be a wake-up call. I think if you see them again in a playoff match, now you've got some reference points to point back to as to this worked, this didn't work, this matchup was difficult, this one worked really well. We have to be careful about X, Y, and Z. That part's good. It's a learning lesson. But I think in general, this was somewhat what you expected without Joseph, without Barco, and others didn't step up to change what it could have been. So now going to Montreal, are you going to have Joseph? Probably not. Sounds like you're going to have Barco for at least some of it. All right, now you're starting to get back to where you want to be. Can you get back to where you want to be before the playoffs start? I think so. I think you can have Barco, Pitti, Joseph start up top. I think you can have Robinson, LGP, Escobar start in the back. If you have that, I think you're a better team than most in the playoffs. So I think you can be okay. But do you get more defensive in the postseason? That's probably my biggest question. And definitely your gut reaction after last night is, yep, do what you did last year, get defensive and play it out. I don't think it's as big of a shock or as big of a turn as it was last year. But could you look a little bit more like the Atlanta United that was supposedly slow and boring but wasn't quite as slow and boring as people thought it was? Yeah. I think that's a fair thing to say. I don't know if you go back to 4-3-3, though. I don't know if you have the personnel to really make it work as well. But maybe, and maybe in spots, I think you can still be more defensive in the 3-5-2 than you have been. And that's kind of where my gut feeling is.
2 more before we go. They're both pretty quick.
Okay.
Tafka says, I will not be convinced until literally there is a measurement of Yankee Stadium's pitch is videoed.
Yeah, I'm not buying it. Sorry, Glenn.
And then Four-Card Ahmed says, I would rather lose a player a year too soon than a year too late. I'm this close to being done with LGP, and he pulls the Montgomery Brewster gif of Richard Pryor holding his fingers an inch apart.
I think the issue is not his performance that could cause that to happen. It's contract negotiations and demand both in the league, outside the league. And I think, does he want to commit to probably 3 years? Because, what LGP is, I'm trying to remember ages off the top of my head. He is 27 years old. You're not going to sign him to a 1-year deal. You're not going to sign him to a 2-year deal. You're going to want at least 3 years. Does he want to commit to 3 years? Does he want to go back to Argentina and play? Boca's always been, mentioned. Boca's got money. Boca could pay a transfer fee. Boca could pay him handsomely. Would he go back into Boca's lineup? Would he go into Boca's lineup and play? He hasn't been there before. You got to study him a little bit. I can't answer that definitively. I think so, from what I've seen, but I'm not 100% committed to it. I don't think he would be a definite, no questions asked starter no matter what. I think he'd have to fight for a spot. But he's been mentioned there before, and they have the money to make it worth his while, worth Atlanta United's while. But the flip side, like we just went through, is there's a number of teams in MLS that would probably pay pretty good money to bring him in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they would commit to whatever salary possibilities you're talking about. Because I think you're probably, he's a TAM player now. You've got, I think, the ability to go all the way up to doubling salary and still be a TAM player. I don't know if you go all the way up double, but if he ends up being a player that's $1 million a year, performances, I don't think that's out of the question. I really don't. Does Atlanta want to do it? Do they have the room to do it? Does somebody else want to do it? I think those are the things that affect it. I really don't think he's had a year that you're thinking about running him out of town on. I think that's harsh.
No. Yeah.
But is he having a year where you question how much you want to pay and how long you want to commit to? Could be. That's fair. But no, just flat out performance to replace him. No, I don't think that's the case at all.
Chris Ashley, to sum things up, addressing to both you and me, people just need perspective. I'm a Vol football fan, so Atlanta United and Greenville Triumph for keeping me sane right now. Hashtag Overreaction Thursday.
I don't think Atlanta United aspires to be the Tennessee Volunteers. No offense.
No.
So there's a different level of expectation. And I don't think Greenville Triumph are trying to be, yet anyway, that club in League One. I think Atlanta United is trying to be that club. It creates a level of expectation. It's completely understandable. And it's okay to have those reactions. I think just base them in reality, base them in real things as opposed to fictional. Don't let the Twitter sphere direct you down blind alleys at times, because it happens, seen it. Think about what you're seeing and think about all the factors that are creating what you're seeing and come to the conclusions. I mean, like a player's performance, yeah, there's some measurables, but there's also a lot of subjectivity, and there's also a lot of, do they fit the way this group plays? Do they fit the way this manager wants to play? There's lots of things. It's not exactly easy to say. It's not like baseball, where somebody's hitting 300, somebody's hitting 40 home runs. That's pretty good, period. There's not a lot of question on if they're having a good year or not. You don't get that, especially with a defender. You just don't get that. So everybody's going to have different opinions, and that's a good thing about it. That's what makes this game great. But just think critically when you see these things, and don't rush to conclusions or emotional reactions, and be realistic. Atlanta has played a lot of matches, a lot of minutes this season. It adds up. They've won an Open Cup. They've won a Campeones Cup. To me, that makes it very hard to count this year as a failure. Yeah. Is it as successful as it could be? Well, we'll find out. But I still think this team has the talent to win MLS Cup, and I think they've been there, they've done that, and a loss like last night's not going to shake them. I think it can motivate them, and I think it can push them forward. And it needs to, because they're not going to win MLS Cup playing that way. They're going to win MLS Cup playing the way they did in Portland. They're going to win it playing the way they did against NYC at the Benz. They're going to win it playing the way they did against Club America. They're going to win it with the guts and testicular fortitude that they showed in the Open Cup final and they showed in Orlando in the Cup semifinal. Those are the things that have to come to the fore. And we'll see if they can make that jump. You got 2 more regular season games. Sunday in Montreal. We'll preview everything from a next to last weekend situation in Major League Soccer. All the Eastern Conference games at 5, all the Western Conference games at 7:30. We'll preview all of those tomorrow. We'll get you set on Prize Picks. We'll talk about where Montreal is standing right now. They might be sleeping at the moment because they might have had a long night last night after winning the Canadian Championship. And if they want to go do it again tonight and the next night, that's cool. Go ahead. Enjoy it, because you're probably not making the playoffs. So if you want to party. And maybe that changes Sunday a little bit.
You go right ahead, young man.
We will see what happens, but we'll get set for all of that tomorrow. Thanks, everybody, for listening for all 2.5+ hours. I didn't think it'd go this long. I didn't think I'd be awake at this point. And I might not be for much longer.
I was going to say, you can't sleep in the daylight, can you?
Not well, but today could be an exception. There's a lot of studying to do, though. There's a lot of things to prepare for, so we'll see how this goes. It might just be an early night tonight. That's probably the more likely scenario. But I'm going to go have a late lunch. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks for all the questions. Thanks for just wanting to talk through it. It's much appreciated. We wouldn't be able to do this stuff without you guys. So, mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha plata, y'all.